Welcome to my channel. The galaxy remembers few things better than war, but every legend begins in silence. Long before the stars trembled with gunfire, before fleets painted the void with fire, there was one story that defied the very meaning of mercy. It began on a forgotten moon, a place caught between empires, where an alien princess named Sarai was hunted by her own blood. Her convoy was ambushed by rebels seeking to overthrow her mother, the Queen of Auran, ruler of one of the most feared dynasties in the galaxy. Her guards fell one by one, and her ship plummeted into the darkness. It should have been the end, but fate had other plans. From the wreckage, a lone human responded to her distress call. Captain Isaac Wren, a veteran of Earth's defense fleet, now wandering the Outer Rim after the Terran Wars. When he found her ship, it was half buried in dust and silence. The air was thin, the oxygen failing, and inside lay the princess, broken, barely breathing, surrounded by the bodies of her protectors. He didn't hesitate. With no medics, no supplies, and only minutes to spare, he did something unthinkable. He transfused his own blood into her, using a crude field injector meant for combat triage. His veins burned with chemical agony, his body trembling as alien DNA collided with human cells. But he didn't stop. And when the machine went dark, she opened her eyes, glowing faintly with both human red and alien gold. When the rescue ships arrived days later, they found him unconscious, barely alive. But the princess clutching his hand as if the connection between them had already become something far deeper than survival. The medics couldn't explain how he was still breathing. His blood chemistry was no longer human, yet somehow stable. The princess's heartbeat matched his in frequency, like twin stars locked in the same orbit. She begged the crew to take him with her, to her world, to her mother. And so the human soldier was brought before the throne of Auran, a planet of crystal seas and burning skies where the queen ruled over thousands of worlds. The moment she saw him, her expression shifted from curiosity to recognition. "This one carries my bloodline's echo," she whispered, her voice a melody and a command. When Isaac woke in the royal chambers, the princess stood beside him, tears shimmering in her eyes. "You saved me," she said softly, "but it cost you something. The bond between our blood isn't meant to be shared." He smiled weakly. "Then I guess I'm not meant for simple things." Word spread fast through the Galactic Council. A human soldier had not only survived cross-species transfusion but shared blood with alien royalty. The council demanded he be isolated, studied, contained. The queen refused. She declared him a guest of Auran, protected under her personal guard. But behind her calm mask, something ancient stirred. She could feel him through the walls of her empire, a pulse that matched her daughter's. In the depths of the palace, she sought answers from the royal seers. They told her a prophecy long buried. When alien and human blood become one, the heart of the queen will no longer be her own. From that day, the queen began to dream of him, visions of earth burning, of stars collapsing, and of a voice calling her name not as a ruler, but as a woman. She tried to resist, but the bond was alive, spreading beyond blood, reaching through mind and memory. Isaac, meanwhile, wandered the gardens of Auran, trying to understand why he could hear her thoughts, why the queen's emotions whispered like wind in his head. When he closed his eyes, he saw flashes of her past, wars, grief, and loneliness so vast it could swallow worlds. The princess noticed the change in her mother first. The queen's composure fractured. Her tone softened when speaking of the human. Soon, she began to summon him. First for questions, then for counsel, then simply to be near. The court watched in silence as the unthinkable unfolded. The Queen of Auran, whose will had broken fleets, now lingered in silence beside a mortal from Earth. But the bond had a price. The more their connection deepened, the weaker Isaac grew. His cells began to shimmer faintly with alien energy. His reflection no longer looked entirely human. And yet, he couldn't leave. Every time he tried, a wave of pain surged through his veins, dragging him back toward her presence. "You are bound," the queen confessed one night. "When you gave your blood to save my daughter, you tied your soul to mine. I can feel your heart as my own." Isaac trembled but didn't back away. "Then if I die," he said, "you die too." Her eyes glowed faintly, sadness flickering like a dying star. "No, human. I will live forever. But you will fade. And with you, everything I have become." The Galactic Council demanded intervention. They feared the fusion of human and Aurelian blood might birth a weapon or a god. Fleets surrounded Aurelius, threatening war unless the queen surrendered the human for study. But she refused, sealing her world behind energy barriers older than civilization itself. "They would dissect you," she told him, "and use your blood to rewrite life." "Then let them come," he answered, standing before her throne with defiance burning in his eyes. "I didn't give my blood for power. I gave it because someone needed help." That defiance reminded her of something long lost, hope. For centuries, she had ruled with fear, believing compassion to be weakness. Yet here stood a mortal who risked his soul without expecting reward. She reached out, her hand trembling as she brushed his cheek. "Humanity," she whispered, as if tasting the word for the first time. "You are chaos wrapped in grace." But peace couldn't last. The Council's armada breached the Aurelian defenses, descending upon the planet with blinding fury. The Queen prepared her people for annihilation. Yet before the first strike could fall, the air trembled with a sound no one had heard before. A pulse from deep within Isaac's body. The bond, now fully awakened, spread outward in waves of pure energy. Ships froze midair, their engines dead. Communications failed, and every mind in orbit heard a single whisper. "Stop." The Queen's voice and his had merged, echoing across space, reaching the hearts of both alien and human alike. "We are one," the voice said, "and if you destroy us, you destroy yourselves." The Council fleet broke formation, officers collapsing as their neural implants overloaded with the echo of human empathy, amplified through alien resonance. In the silence that followed, the Queen turned to Isaac, her eyes shimmering with something between awe and fear. "You've become more than human," she said. He shook his head. "No, I just remembered what it means to be one." The war ended without a shot. The Queen dissolved her throne, sharing power among her people. Humanity was no longer a curiosity to the galaxy. It was a reminder that courage and compassion could change even the deepest darkness. Yet the bond between them remained, unbroken. Isaac's body grew weaker, the alien energy consuming him slowly. The Queen stood by his side as he lay beneath the great crystal canopy of her world's sky. "I never wanted this," she whispered. "I only wanted to understand you." He smiled faintly. "Then you already do." As his eyes closed, the bond pulsed one last time, spreading across the galaxy like a heartbeat, linking species, minds, and souls. The Queen fell to her knees as light rose from his body, spreading through the palace and into the stars. When it faded, he was gone. But his voice remained, echoing softly through her thoughts. "Don't stop believing in us." And so the Queen of Aurelius changed forever. She carried within her the last flicker of humanity, a reminder that even in a universe of gods and monsters, one mortal heart could reshape destiny. From that day on, her empire no longer feared the human word. It became sacred, a symbol of balance between chaos and compassion. Across the stars, wherever the story was told, they called it the tale of the human who gave his blood to save a princess and his soul to redeem a queen. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this cinematic HFY story of humanity's courage and compassion, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more powerful sci-fi tales. Until next time, remember, sometimes the smallest act of humanity can change the fate of the entire galaxy. The world of Aurelius was unlike anything humanity had ever recorded in the galactic archives. A living cathedral of glass and wind where oceans shimmered with starlight and mountains sang with the hum of alien energy. The sky itself looked alive, painted in swirls of violet and gold as if the atmosphere breathed. When Isaac awoke there for the first time, he thought he had died. The air was soft, almost musical, and the scent of the flowers drifting through the open chamber carried something that felt halfway between dream and memory. Beside his bed stood Princess Sarai, her pale silver skin faintly glowing, her eyes now streaked with red, the color of his blood. She smiled when she saw him stir, but her expression trembled, caught between gratitude and fear. "You shouldn't be alive," she whispered. "Our blood should have killed you." Isaac's voice was hoarse, every word a struggle. "Then we both got lucky." Her hand hesitated before touching his arm, and for a moment he felt a pulse through his veins that wasn't entirely his own. It was like two hearts beating in the same body. She drew back, startled. "You hear it too," she said quietly. He nodded, and neither of them spoke again for a long time. Outside the palace walls, the city stretched for miles, spires of luminous crystal rising above rivers that glowed in the dark. The people of Aurelis moved gracefully, their clothes shimmering like the surface of oil on water, their faces unreadable. Isaac noticed the way they stared at him, not with curiosity, but with something closer to reverence or dread. The story had already spread. They called him the Bloodbound, the human who gave his life to save the royal heir. Some whispered that his blood had cursed the princess. Others claimed he was a prophecy come true. None dared to speak openly when the queen's name was mentioned, for she ruled not through cruelty but through presence. A will so powerful that her silence was enough to stop wars. Yet now that silence was breaking. She had summoned the human. Isaac's escort brought him through the palace's inner halls, where the walls pulsed faintly like veins of a living creature. He could feel the vibration of thousands of minds connected through some unseen energy field, the Aurelian collective consciousness. Every thought here moved like a current through water, and as he walked, he could sense whispers brushing the edge of his mind. Human, stranger, unclean. The words weren't spoken aloud, but he heard them all the same. Then the doors opened, and the noise stopped. The queen's chamber was vast and cold, its floor made of transparent glass overlooking the planet's core. There she sat upon a throne carved from living crystal, her form tall and elegant, her eyes golden like suns at twilight. Her voice, when it came, filled the air without effort. "You bear the mark of my bloodline," she said. "Tell me, human, why did you give your life for one not your own?" Isaac swallowed hard. The room felt heavier with every breath. "Because she needed help," he said simply. The queen tilted her head, studying him like a creature from another universe. "You do not seek reward? Power? Alliance?" He shook his head. "That's not how we work. You help because it's right." She rose slowly, her movements deliberate, each step echoing like thunder beneath glass. "Right?" she repeated softly, as if testing the word on her tongue. Humans speak of right and wrong as though the universe listens. Her hand reached out and hovered near his chest. But the universe listens only to blood. For an instant, he felt something pull inside him, his pulse quickening, his vision dimming. The queen's eyes flared bright, then softened. "Strange," she murmured. "Your blood calls to mine." She turned away. "Take him to the lower sanctum. He will remain here until I decide what he is." Days passed in the shimmering cage of the sanctum, a chamber made of light and memory where Isaac could see the planet's heart beating below through layers of crystal. The princess visited often, bringing food and silence. She told him about her mother, the queen who ended wars with a single decree, who could bind whole species to obedience with the power of her mind. "She's not evil," Sarai said once, her voice quiet. "She's afraid. Our people have forgotten mercy. She believes compassion invites destruction." Isaac looked out over the glowing world below. "Maybe she's never seen what it looks like." Sarai smiled sadly. "Then show her, human, before she shows you what fear truly means." But there was something happening between them, something neither science nor prophecy could explain. Isaac began to dream in colors that weren't his own. He saw memories that didn't belong to him. Battlefields of silver fire, alien children playing beneath strange constellations, the queen as a young woman kneeling beside her dying sister, swearing never to love again. He woke each time trembling, breathless, certain that her pain was now living inside him. One night he found her standing at the edge of the sanctum, watching him through the light. "You've been inside my mind," she said, her tone unreadable. You saw what no other being has seen in 1,000 years. He stood slowly, meeting her gaze. I didn't mean to. Her lips curved faintly. And yet you did. The bond between us grows without command. My blood should have destroyed you. Instead, it remembers you. The queen stepped closer, her presence overwhelming, her voice almost a whisper. Tell me, human, what does it feel like to die for another? Isaac met her eyes without fear. It feels like living the only way that matters. Something in her expression changed. A tremor of emotion quickly buried beneath her composure. She turned away before he could read it. You should not exist, she said softly. And yet you do. You are a question the universe was never meant to ask. Then she left him alone again, though not entirely. He could still feel her in his thoughts, a heartbeat echoing faintly through his soul. He didn't know it yet, but the queen herself was beginning to change, her dreams now filled with human laughter, her mind haunted by the echo of his defiance. In a galaxy built on order and fear, one act of compassion had begun to unravel everything. And somewhere deep inside her, beneath centuries of rule and silence, the Queen of Aurelice felt something stir that she thought had died forever. The first spark of a heart remembering how to feel. The Queen of Aurelice had not dreamed in centuries. For her kind, sleep was an ancient luxury abandoned long ago, a weakness discarded by those who ruled without rest. Yet now, every time she closed her eyes, she saw the human. His face, scarred and strange, his blood burning red in the alien light, his voice echoing through her thoughts like a heartbeat that would not fade. She would see his hand reaching for hers, the moment his life bled into her daughter's veins, and then she would wake in silence, her chest tight, her pulse unsteady. The bond she had dismissed as chance was becoming something alive, something that connected her to him across every wall she built. And the more she resisted it, the stronger it grew. She found herself wandering the palace corridors at night, drawn toward the sanctum where he was kept. It was not fear that drove her, it was curiosity. For the first time since she took her crown, the queen felt something she could neither control nor command. When she arrived, the chamber was dimly lit by veins of light running through the crystalline floor. Isaac sat by the transparent wall, staring into the swirling core of the planet far below. He turned as the doors opened but did not bow. I was beginning to wonder if I'd see you again, he said quietly. Her eyes narrowed, not in anger but surprise. No one had ever spoken to her so plainly. Do you not fear me? She asked. He shrugged slightly. I've faced things worse than death. Fear's a waste of time. For a moment, she almost smiled. Humans, she murmured. You burn so quickly, yet even the stars envy your fire. She moved closer, her steps soundless. Tell me, Isaac Wren, why do you fight for others so easily? What makes you willing to die for a stranger? He looked back at her, his expression calm but sincere. Because if we stop helping, we stop being human. She tilted her head. And what are you now? Still human? Or something else? He hesitated, and for the first time, doubt flickered in his eyes. I don't know, he admitted. Your world changed me. Maybe your blood did too. But I don't regret it. The queen reached out, and her fingers brushed his arm. The touch sent a ripple of light up his skin, a faint golden pulse that made both of them catch their breath. The energy between them was alive, humming like a storm about to break. It's stronger, she whispered. The bond is merging beyond blood. It's thought now, soul. Her hand trembled before she pulled it back. That should be impossible. A lot of things about us are, Isaac replied softly. You're learning that. The queen's eyes flashed, torn between wonder and fear. You speak like a god who knows no limits. No, he said, just a man who stopped believing in them. For days after that encounter, she avoided him, but the silence only deepened her unrest. Every council meeting felt hollow, every voice dull compared to the one echoing in her mind. Her ministers noticed her distraction and grew fearful. Whispers spread through the palace, that the human had bewitched her, that his blood carried a curse meant to enslave the royal mind. In the lower cities, priests called for his execution. They said the old prophecies warned of this, of a foreign spark that would challenge the divine order. The queen ignored them at first, but one morning, as she stood before the great mirror of her ancestors, she saw something that made her tremble. For just an instant, her reflection's eyes were not gold, they were brown. Human. She summoned her seers, demanding answers. They gathered in silence, cloaked in silver smoke. The human's blood has fused with the royal lineage, the eldest one said. The pulse that binds you to your daughter now binds you to him. Your fates are connected. As he changes, so will you. The queen's hands clenched into fists. Then sever it. The seer bowed low. That is impossible. The union is beyond body. It is the echo of will and sacrifice, an energy not even the stars can divide. She turned away, her voice sharp with denial. Then he will die, and the echo will fade. The seer's gaze did not waver. If he dies, so will the part of you that still remembers love. That night, unable to bear the silence, she returned to the sanctum. The guards tried to stop her, but her will brushed them aside like wind scattering dust. Isaac stood when she entered, sensing the storm behind her eyes. They told you, he said quietly. She nodded once. They told me everything. That you are changing me. I didn't ask for that, he said. I just wanted you to understand. Her gaze hardened. Understand what? That power means nothing if it can't protect what's innocent. She stepped closer, her anger trembling beneath her calm. You think I don't protect my people? You think I don't know sacrifice? No, he said. I think you've forgotten why it matters. For a moment, there was only silence. Then something inside her broke. You dare speak to me as though I am some lost child? She hissed. You, who nearly destroyed yourself for a single life? He didn't move. Yes, he said softly. And I'd do it again. The words struck her harder than any weapon. She felt the pull again, stronger than ever. A magnetic gravity drawing her toward him. Before she could stop herself, her hand was on his chest, her mind collapsing into his. The chamber dissolved into light, and suddenly she was seeing through his memories. Earth, oceans of blue, the laughter of children, the smell of rain. It overwhelmed her senses, too rich, too alive. She gasped and staggered back, clutching the railing as if the very weight of his world crushed her. So this is what you carry, she whispered. This is why you burn. Isaac stepped closer, his voice quiet but steady. Now you know why we fight the way we do, why we bleed for each other, why even death doesn't stop us. The queen looked up, and her eyes were wet, not with weakness, but with awe. You've shown me something I thought long dead, she said. But you don't understand what you've done. Cannot let you go. If you leave, I will lose this connection. And without it, I will become what I was before. Then change, he said. Keep the feeling, not the chain. Her lips trembled as she turned away. You speak of freedom as though it's easy. It isn't, he said. But it's worth bleeding for. As she left the sanctum, the planet trembled faintly. Somewhere deep within Auralis's core, the hive network, the psychic lattice connecting all her people, began to pulse differently. It no longer resonated with the cold precision of obedience, carried emotion, compassion. The first ripple of humanity had entered the bloodstream of an empire that had forgotten what it meant to feel. And though she didn't admit it aloud, the queen understood the truth. This human hadn't just bound himself to her blood. He had bound himself to her heart, and through it, to the soul of her entire world. The palace of Auralis was no longer silent. Beneath its shimmering towers and the glow of its rivers of light, whispers had begun to spread like wildfire through the neural chorus that bound the queen's people together. Something had changed, something profound and dangerous. The collective no longer moved in perfect unison. Its rhythm was fractured, laced with feelings that had no place in a civilization built on obedience. The soldiers who once followed orders without thought now hesitated before striking. The servants paused in their routines, glancing at one another with confusion, as though awakening from a long, shared dream. The hive of Aurelice had begun to feel, and it terrified them. Deep within her throne chamber, the queen could sense it all, the flickering emotions rippling through her people like tremors beneath her feet. It was the echo of the human's influence, spreading through the psychic bond that linked her to every living mind under her reign. She stood before the great mirror of souls, a vast pane of living crystal that reflected not the body but the spirit. What she saw there unsettled her. The glow in her eyes, once pure gold, now shimmered faintly with a red hue, the color of human blood. Her reflection was no longer entirely her own. Behind her, the council of high ministers waited, their faces masks of fear and reverence. "My queen," one of them began cautiously, "the network falters. Entire sectors of the hive are resisting synchronization." Another added, "They say the human's presence has corrupted the pulse. The seers whisper that the prophecy has begun." The queen turned, her voice sharp as breaking glass. "There are no prophecies," she said, "only consequences." But even as she spoke, her voice trembled with doubt. In the lower sanctum, Isaac felt it too. The air seemed alive, vibrating with the hum of consciousness as the hive's psychic field flickered in and out of harmony. He didn't need to be told what was happening. The bond between him and the queen had grown stronger, too strong. Sometimes he could see flashes of her thoughts, fragments of her memories, as though the walls between their minds had become thin as mist. And sometimes, when he closed his eyes, he could feel them, millions of alien voices brushing against his consciousness like distant waves. The connection was expanding far beyond them both, threading through the entire Aurelian network. What had begun as a single act of compassion had become something that threatened to rewrite the soul of an empire. That night, the queen summoned him again. When he entered her private chamber, he found her standing before the open window, staring into the swirling auroras of the Aurelian sky. Her robes shimmered like liquid silver, her posture rigid but fragile, like glass holding back a storm. "Do you know what you've done?" she asked, her voice calm but edged with despair. Isaac frowned. "You mean saving your daughter's life? Or showing your people they can think for themselves?" Her gaze flashed toward him, fierce and wounded all at once. "They are not meant to think, they are meant to be one. Our unity is our power, our survival. Without it, we are chaos." He took a step closer. "Maybe chaos is where life begins." For a moment, silence filled the room, heavy as gravity. Then she turned to him, her golden eyes burning with emotion she could no longer hide. "You don't understand what it means to rule this many minds," she said. "Every thought, every pain, every death. I feel it, carry it. If the unity breaks, the hive will tear itself apart, and I will die with it. Then maybe it's time your people learn to carry themselves," he replied softly. "You're not their god, Kareth. You're their mother. And even children have to learn to walk alone." The sound of her name, her true name, spoken by human lips, made her freeze. No one in her empire dared utter it. She looked at him with a kind of broken wonder. "You dare speak to me as if I am flesh." "Because you are," he said. "You bleed. You fear. You feel. You just forgot how." The queen turned away sharply, but he could see the tremor in her hands. "You speak as if you know me," she whispered. "You see only what your kind wishes to see. Saviors, heroes, martyrs. But you do not see what I have buried to keep this empire alive." She gestured toward the horizon, where entire continents pulsed with faint bioluminescence, the glow of the hive network that linked her mind to billions of others. "Do you know what this light is, human? It is me. It is my consciousness stretched across every world that bears my mark. If I falter, they fall. If I feel too much, they drown in my grief." Her voice cracked, the first crack in the armor of centuries. "I cannot afford to love." Isaac stepped closer, his voice barely above a whisper. "Then what is this bond, Kareth? Because whatever it is, you feel it too." Her breath caught. "I feel everything," she said, almost pleading. "Every heartbeat in my empire. Every mind that prays, curses, or kills in my name. But this, she pressed her hand to her chest. This is different. It is not mine, and yet it is. It burns me. Her hand dropped to her side, trembling. You've infected me with humanity. He gave a faint smile. Funny. We usually call that a gift. For a long while, they stood in silence, the glow of the auroras painting their faces in soft, shifting colors. The queen's expression softened, the exhaustion in her eyes replaced by something fragile and real. You have changed me, she said finally. But change is not always survival. Isaac shook his head. Maybe not, but it's the only way life moves forward. He turned to leave, but her voice stopped him. If this continues, the hive will break. You will die, and I will lose what remains of myself. I should end you now. He faced her again, calm and resolute. Then do it. The challenge in his tone froze her. He took another step closer. If killing me is the only way to stay who you were, do it. But you'll lose more than me. You'll lose the only part of yourself that ever wanted to be free. She stared at him, trembling with the weight of that truth. And then, instead of striking, she whispered, You are a fool. Maybe, he said, but sometimes it takes a fool to make a god doubt herself. The queen turned away, her wings of light unfolding in a slow, sorrowful arc. Go, she said finally, before I change my mind. As he walked out, the hive itself shuddered. Across Aurelice, the psychic web pulsed with a resonance it had never known before. Drones wept. Soldiers laid down their weapons. Whole cities began to hum in strange, haunting harmony, the sound of individuality awakening for the first time. The queen felt it like thunder in her veins, and tears, real human tears, fell from her eyes. Somewhere deep within her, she heard his voice echo softly, You can't control the light once it's seen. That night, Kareth stood alone before the throne of Aurelice. Around her, the palace flickered between shadow and light, the heartbeat of billions merging into something she no longer commanded but shared. And for the first time in 10,000 years, the queen who ruled through fear whispered a single trembling word into the silence. Freedom. The hive answered not with obedience, but with understanding. And though she knew her empire might crumble, a part of her, the part touched by humanity, felt something she hadn't felt since she was a child: peace. The dawn over Aurelice came slow and red, like the awakening of a giant. The horizon burned with streaks of scarlet light, and for the first time in living memory, the hive did not rise in perfect order. The songs that usually synchronized across the world's vast neural lattice were broken, scattered into thousands of independent voices humming different tones. To outsiders it would have sounded chaotic, dissonant, even wrong, but to Kareth it sounded alive. The queen stood on the grand balcony of her palace, her robes flowing like molten silver, her eyes reflecting the sunrise. Below her stretched an empire in transformation. Drones pausing mid-flight to listen to birdsong for the first time, soldiers kneeling by the rivers just to feel the current against their skin, and children, Aurelian children, laughing, a sound that once had no place in the hive's discipline. It was beautiful and terrifying, because she knew what was coming next: the backlash. Change always breeds fear, and fear feeds revolt. Already, the ministers were whispering rebellion in the corridors. Her council of war had stopped following her commands. They called her infection the human plague. They said she had been bewitched by a creature of chaos and emotion, that she was no longer fit to rule. Some demanded she sever the psychic link that bound her to the rest of her kind before it spread further. But she couldn't. The bond had gone too deep. Every time she tried to suppress it, she felt Isaac's pulse in her mind, like a second heartbeat. It calmed her when rage threatened to rise, and it burned through her thoughts when she tried to hate him. She had once believed power was purity, that detachment kept her divine. Now detachment felt like death. And the cruelest truth of all, she didn't want to be divine anymore. She wanted to be human enough to understand why he would bleed for another's life. Isaac had been moved to a secure chamber deep within the palace after the hive began fracturing. Officially, he was a diplomatic guest. In reality, he was a prisoner, protected by Karetha's word alone. He spent his days staring through the window at a world reborn, wondering if he'd done the right thing. What he saw outside, the chaos, the confusion, the violence in the streets as parts of the hive resisted individuality, tore at him. He had wanted to free them, not destroy them. But perhaps that was the curse of humanity. Every freedom was bought with pain. When Kareth came to him that morning, she looked exhausted. The glow of her aura had dimmed, and faint shadows pooled beneath her eyes. She dismissed her guards with a gesture and stood before him in silence. "You were right," she said finally, her voice breaking the stillness. "My people are awakening, but they are afraid. They need guidance, and I can no longer give it." Isaac rose slowly. "Why not?" he asked. "Because they no longer hear my voice," she said, touching her chest. "They hear yours." He blinked, unsure if he'd misheard. "Mine? When you speak," she continued, "your words ripple through the psychic field like light through water. They respond to you not because you command them, but because they believe you." She stepped closer, her tone low, almost pleading. "They believe in what you represent. A will unbound. A courage born not from control, but from choice." Isaac frowned. "Then lead them yourself. You don't need me for that." Her eyes darkened. "You don't understand, human. The hive's unity was built on my consciousness. If they no longer anchor to me, the network will collapse. And with it, millions will die. I can't hold them together and let them be free. The two cannot coexist." She turned away, her wings trembling faintly. "You've given them the spark, but now they need something to replace what I was." Isaac stepped closer. "Then let them build something new, something not made of control." Her laugh was quiet, brittle. "You make it sound so simple." "It's not," he said, "but it's the only way forward." He hesitated before adding, "You once told me your people fear chaos, but maybe they don't fear chaos itself. They fear what it reveals. That they never needed a queen to tell them who they are." She went still. For a moment, her composure cracked entirely, and beneath the ruler's mask was a woman. Lonely, ancient, and afraid. "I don't know how to be anything else," she admitted. "Then let them teach you," he said softly. The rebellion began that night. The first counselor, the most powerful of her ministers, led the uprising from within the capital. Legions of pure-blood Aurelian soldiers, the ones who had not been touched by the awakening, marched on the palace. Their neural chant echoed through the streets. Purity must endure. The human must die. The queen's guards, split in loyalty, turned their weapons on one another. The city that had stood unchallenged for millennia descended into war. Kareth stood at the palace gates as explosions tore through the crystal skyline. She could feel every death as if it were her own, the psychic scream of her dying people ripping through her mind like thunder. The connection that once empowered her now brought agony. In that moment, she realized what true leadership meant. It wasn't domination or fear, but the willingness to share pain. She turned to Isaac. "You need to leave," she said. "If they find you, they'll destroy everything you've done." He shook his head. "Not without you." Her golden eyes met his. "If I fall, the hive will stabilize. If I live, the rebellion will never stop. Then I'll fight beside you," he said. She stared at him, disbelief and admiration mixing in her voice. "You would die for me?" He smiled faintly. "I already did, remember?" The battle raged for hours. The palace defenses burned under the fire of the insurgents' ships. Kareth fought not with blades, but with thought, her psychic will scattering enemies like leaves in a storm. Yet for every soldier she disarmed, 10 more rose in their place. Isaac stood at her side, his weapon blazing as he defended the gates. He moved with the quiet precision of someone who had faced death before and learned to stop fearing it. At one point, a blast sent him crashing to the ground, blood streaking his temple. Kareth turned, rage igniting in her like a supernova. The air trembled, and for the first time in history, the hive itself fought back. Her mind exploded outward through the psychic network, freezing the entire battlefield in an instant. The rebels stopped moving, thousands of bodies held mid-strike, mid-step, mid-breath. The silence that followed was unbearable. When she finally released them, they fell not dead but changed. Their minds had been opened to what she had seen through the human's heart. Compassion, pain, love, and choice. Across the city, soldiers dropped their weapons, weeping openly, their neural links pulsing with color. The war was over, but the cost was unbearable. Kareth staggered, clutching her chest, her strength fading. The power it took to rewrite the hive's collective mind had drained her to the core. Isaac caught her as she fell, lowering her gently to the ground. Her voice was weak but steady. "Do you see, human?" she whispered. "You were right. Chaos didn't destroy us. It made us alive." He smiled faintly through his tears. "You saved them." Her hand brushed his cheek. "No, Isaac. You saved me." As dawn broke again, the smoke began to clear. The capital stood scarred but alive. The people of Auran, once drones in a hive of silence, now stood free and uncertain beneath the same sky. The queen's body lay still in his arms, but as the light touched her face, her eyes opened again, no longer purely golden, but streaked with human red. "What happens now?" he asked quietly. She looked toward the horizon. "Now," she said, her voice both hers and his. "We learn how to live." And far above them, beyond the clouds, the Galactic Council watched in silence. Their sensors showed what no instrument could explain. A pulse of energy emanating from Auran, spreading across star systems, syncing with human frequencies. The universe itself was changing, and somewhere in the council chamber, an elder alien whispered in fear and wonder. "The humans have done it again. They've made gods bleed and made them dream." The aftermath of the Battle of Auran was not peace. It was rebirth wrapped in uncertainty. For centuries, the hive had known only the harmony of command, a single will stretching across 1,000 worlds. Now, for the first time in its long existence, that harmony was gone. The neural song that once echoed through the cosmos had fractured into countless individual voices, discordant, trembling, and beautiful in their imperfection. Across the planet's vast crystal plains, the people wandered as if waking from a dream, their eyes reflecting both terror and awe. The once united consciousness was now alive in fragments, each Aurelian learning how to think alone, to feel without permission. Some embraced it, others screamed. Change had come, and no one, human or alien, knew what it would cost. At the center of this new world stood Queen Kareth and the man who had changed everything, Isaac Wren. The palace had been rebuilt, though much of it was left intentionally incomplete. The queen no longer ruled from a throne of light, but from the gardens that overlooked the reborn city. The air hummed with quiet industry, no longer the rigid rhythm of obedience, but the uneven heartbeat of freedom. Isaac had become her closest advisor, though he refused any title. He moved among the people, teaching them simple things: choice, kindness, debate. The word why spread through the hive like fire. Children asked it. Soldiers questioned it. Even the queen whispered it sometimes in the still hours of dawn. But freedom was a double-edged gift. In the outer colonies, not all accepted the queen's transformation. Fleets that had once obeyed her mind now acted independently, declaring themselves pure Auran. They saw individuality as infection and humanity as its source. Their broadcasts filled the galactic network. "The Queen is no longer our voice. She is the corruption that will end us." Skirmishes erupted across the border systems. Worlds turned dark. Isaac heard the reports with growing dread. "They're going to come for you," he warned her one evening as they watched the twin suns set over the palace lake. Kareth's eyes, still streaked with the faint red hue of human blood, did not flinch. "They will come," she said softly. "And when they do, they will see what we've become." "You mean what you've become," he said. "No," she replied. "What we have become. Don't you see? They aren't fighting just me. They're fighting the part of me that is you." The Council of Worlds grew restless as well. The transformation of Auran had shaken the balance of power. The once feared hive had not fallen, it had evolved. But the Council did not trust evolution. They feared it. They saw the merging of human and Aurelian essence as a threat, a precedent that could rewrite the laws of life itself. Rumors spread that they were preparing to contain the situation. Containment in galactic diplomacy was a polite word for annihilation. When Isaac received the encrypted transmission from an old Terran contact, the message was short and grim. The Council is moving fleets. Aurelice has one cycle to comply. He took it to Kareth. She listened in silence, then looked up at him with calm eyes. Then it seems our choice is clear. He frowned. To fight? No, she said. To stand. The following day, she called for a broadcast to the entire galaxy, a message that would reach both the Council and the Hive's breakaway factions. Standing beside Isaac on the palace balcony, her voice carried through every channel, every signal, every mind that still remembered her authority. I was born from unity, she said. I was raised to believe that control was peace. But control without choice is not peace, it is silence. A human once taught me that freedom is not the absence of order, but the presence of heart. Today, Aurelice stands not as an empire, but as a people who choose. She paused, her eyes fixed on the stars. We will not kneel again. Not to fear, not to the Council, not even to our past. The Council's response came swiftly, an armada vast enough to blot out suns. Ships from 100 species surrounded Aurelice, their hulls gleaming with the cold light of judgment. The Council demanded surrender, but the Queen's answer was simple. We have nothing left to surrender, she said. The first salvo came at dawn. Plasma beams struck the planet's upper shields, tearing through the sky in streaks of blue fire. The people screamed. The new hive, still fragile, still learning, panicked. But then, something extraordinary happened. Without command, without instruction, the citizens of Aurelice acted as one, not through control but through will. Millions of minds linked voluntarily, forming a new kind of unity, one born not of obedience but of trust. Their combined consciousness reached the Queen and the human at the center of it all, amplifying the bond that had once been only between them. Isaac felt it first, a surge of warmth that flooded through his veins like sunlight. The Queen grasped his hand, her eyes glowing gold and red, twin suns merging. Together, they rose into the air, surrounded by light so bright it erased shadow. Across the planet, every Aurelian joined them in thought, and in that instant the line between species dissolved. The combined energy burst outward, a wave of telepathic force that swept through space like a heartbeat. The Council's fleet froze mid-fire, their crews overwhelmed by visions not of war, but of life, memories, love, pain, laughter, all shared in a single instant. Admirals dropped their weapons. Soldiers fell to their knees weeping. The entire galaxy heard what no technology could ever transmit: the truth of connection. Humanity and Aurelice were not enemies, not opposites. They were reflections of the same yearning for meaning. When the light faded, the sky was quiet. The Council's armada retreated without another word. The battle had ended without destruction, without conquest. But the effort had taken everything from them. Kareth floated gently back to the palace floor, her strength nearly gone. Isaac caught her before she fell. Her body was fragile now, her once glowing skin dimmed. You did it, he whispered. No, she said weakly. We did it. I just gave them what you gave me, the choice to feel. Her hand trembled in his. Stay, she whispered. Always, he said. Her eyes closed, a faint smile on her lips. The Queen of Aurelice was gone. Yet death was not the end. In the days that followed, something miraculous occurred. The hive did not mourn with silence, they mourned with song. Millions of voices rose across the world, harmonizing into a melody that spread through the cosmos. Ships from Earth arrived not as conquerors but as friends. Humanity helped rebuild the cities, teaching what they knew about democracy, empathy, and resilience. And deep within the palace gardens, beneath a tree grown from crystal and bone, a monument was built. A statue of the Queen and the human, hands clasped, faces turned toward the stars. The plaque beneath it bore only one line, written in both human and Aurelian script. She taught us to feel. He taught us to choose. Generations later, Children from both worlds would sit beneath that statue, listening to the story of how a single act of compassion, a man giving his blood to save a dying princess, changed the fate of civilizations. They would learn that humanity's greatest power was not its weapons, not its science, but its heart. And in the halls of the Galactic Council, the name Aurelius would no longer be spoken with fear, but with reverence, as the place where gods learned to be human and humanity learned to be infinite. Thank you for watching. If the story moved you, if you believe in the power of humanity and compassion even among the stars, please like, comment, and subscribe for more cinematic HFY stories. This is Sci-Fi Tales, where humanity never stops reaching for the light.